Chapter 24, Part 3, Drowning at the Sorrows, Sylvester and Ferdinand. Sylvester Ob Ehrenfest was having a lousy evening. Actually, he'd been having a lousy last couple of days, and according to Florencia, it was all his fault. Conversation over dinner had been terse and barely civil, as Melchior and their attendants had been present, and it would not do to show anything but a united front. But once they had retreated to their private chambers, it had all ended up in an explosive argument. It had started with Florencia asking him if he had reconsidered his decision regarding Charlotte, and ended up with her storming away into her room and him shut out, glowering and stewing in his own frustration on the other side of that door. As always, Sylvester cooled off quickly, but unlike other times, the moment he tried to go to her, he'd found, to his deep dismay, that Florencia had locked the connecting door that led from his chamber to hers. That had seriously stung. Sylvester retreated to his study to lick his wounds, since staying in his chamber, knowing that Florencia was on the other side, so close and yet so far, was painful. Putting some distance helped, but he was still miserable. It was late, it was raining torrents outside, Florencia did not want him in her bed tonight, and he had somehow failed his children again.
I wish somebody, anybody, could take over for me. Being Ob is just no fun at all.
He opened a compartment in his desk that held a fine bottle of Vise, and contemplating the expensive liquor he'd received from some noble who had been trying to curry favor from him. He had never opened it. He'd never even been able to sneak a sip in the office, since he was always surrounded by attendants, scholars, and Karsted's watchful eye was always on him. But tonight he was alone, and no one was around to care. He splashed some of the dark liquid into a glass, and brought the glass to his mouth. He did not actually drink it immediately, though. He leaned back in his chair with a sigh, glass in hand, and thought and thought and thought about their earlier argument.
How is it my fault that Charlotte snuck away from the castle?
He had said in response to Florencia's accusations.
Are you saying I, as her father, am supposed to be able to read her mind or know when and where she is at all times?
Don't be ridiculous, Sylvester. She learned this behavior from you. Don't look like that. Do you think I'm a fool and I don't know about your little trips to the temple or the lower city?
Sylvester had felt the blood drain from his face.
Florencia, you're not suggesting I went there to look for.
Florencia raised her hand to stop him.
What you actually do at the temple is not the problem here.
But
You are under the delusion that no one notices your actions, but everyone in the castle with half a brain can piece things together, and from countless
Form conclusions.
uh, 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 and form conclusions based on appearances. And I assure you, Charlotte has more than half a brain. Do you think she wouldn't know about you regularly eschewing your duties so you can go gallivanting around the temple?
it's for work. It's always been for work.
I told you the what you actually do there is not the issue. You work as Ob is your work as Ob is to rule Ehrenfest and lead it to prosperity. And your work as a father is to be an upstanding example to your children. And this is what you teach them to sneak around and
Recklessly?
and 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 recklessly do whatever they want and flaunt their authority.
Now that is unfair, Florencia. The way you tell it, I'm basically a good for nothing. Why can't you ever recognize what I do? You have no idea how difficult it is to shoulder this heavy burden of responsibility.
I don't want to hear it, Sylvester.
Florencia said, throwing up her hands in exasperation.
I try. I'm.
Tired?
I'm. Yeah. I'm tired of hearing you complain about how difficult you've had it. Did you. Do you know what is even more difficult? Failing your children and being unable to save them. Will I continue to lose my children because their father did not do the job he was supposed to do?
The words were like a slap to Sylvester's face, and a bitter argument had ensued where wrongs of years past had been dragged out and rehashed. They had said terrible things to each other, and the time that they should have used to talk about the situation with Charlotte had instead been utterly wasted in a marital spat. Sylvester wished he could be everything everyone expected of him as an Ob, a father, and a husband. But it seemed that he had failed in every respect. If only someone could help him. He sighed and knocked back the drink, enjoying the burn of the vise as it went down. It was excellent stuff, but it didn't dull the ache inside him. He refilled his glass, chasing oblivion, or at least a dulling of that pain inside him. But before he took a sip, he heard a noise outside his door. The guard posted outside announced his visitor, and suddenly Ferdinand was strolling into the office. Sylvester blinked in surprise and put down his drink. Earlier that morning, Ferdinand had sent an ordinance canceling their dinner appointment, citing important business that could not wait, and he had refused to elaborate on what that urgent business was. Now here he was, looking as collected and unruffled as ever at such a late hour of the night. Late though it was, Sylvester rejoiced at the unexpected arrival of his younger brother. Ferdinand was smarter and more gifted than anyone in Ehrenfest, and seeing him looking so much like himself filled Sylvester with the deep conviction that things perhaps weren't so hopeless after all.
Why couldn't you have just been Ob in my stead, little brother?
Sylvester thought, not for the first time, before straightening up and welcoming him in. His joy at seeing his brother was short-lived, for Ferdinand immediately ruined the mood the moment he opened his mouth.
So you're telling me that I need to rescind my order that the guilty parties be banished from the city, and that I need to do it as soon as possible for the sake of Ehrenfest?
Sylvester asked, leaning back onto his chair and looking confused. In all honesty, Ferdinand didn't blame him for failing to follow the logic at all. Up until that afternoon, Ferdinand had unquestionably been of the opinion that Sylvester had done the right thing. But things were different now,
That's right.
he said.
I know this goes against what you and Florencia both declared, but I assure you that there are several factors at play that haven't been considered yet.
Sylvester cradled his head in his hands and groaned.
Oh, oh, you have no idea how wrong you are there. Florencia is incredibly unhappy with my decision to punish Charlotte, and all her retainers. She says that we're short-staffed as it is, and replacing them all is a foolish move that would only stress Charlotte more. As to the banishment of the salon members, well, she didn't care one way or the other. That is until Charlotte somehow managed to change her mind.
Ferdinand blinked in surprise. Well, this was an unexpected but welcome development. As Sylvester opened up about how Florencia was so upset about the situation with Charlotte, to the point that he was drinking alone to wash his sorrows away, Ferdinand realized that perhaps it might not be so difficult for Myne to get her wish after all. However, suddenly Sylvester went quiet and looked up at Ferdinand as if suddenly realizing something.
But what I want to know
Sylvester said, narrowing his eyes.
is why you suddenly came at this late hour after canceling earlier and saying something about some important business. Why are you so interested now when you didn't even weigh in the matter earlier? And you never really explained to me why rescinding my order to banish the salon people and their families would be beneficial to Ehrenfest. As far as I see, the impact of society and economy would be negligible, and we'd only benefit in strengthening our position by dealing harshly with them. They are lucky I let them live.
Ferdinand looked back at his older brother, face blank.
What are you hiding from me, Ferdinand?
Sylvester asked, his expression hardening. Ferdinand thought back to earlier that evening, remembering Myne, her weeping face, and the despair he'd felt at knowing he'd lost her for good. For a second, he felt his emotions rise to the surface, but he checked them by reminding himself of the vow he'd made to himself to carry out her will at whatever the cost.
It is time to tell Sylvester.
Ferdinand lowered his eyes.
Ehrenfest cannot afford to cast those women out and their families from the city, Sylvester. If you proceed, the results would be disastrous for our duchy.
I don't understand. Where is this coming from?
Myne.
Ferdinand said, meeting his brother's eyes.
Myne will not have it.
Sylvester looked at him as if he was crazy.
Are you saying that I, the Archduke of Ehrenfest, must obey the whims of a commoner girl from the lower city?
Ferdinand couldn't help but let himself smile at the absurd spot they were in.
That's right.
Ferdinand, this is not a joke.
I know it.
Ferdinand stood with a sigh, feeling restless. Suddenly he understood what Eckhart always said about hating to sit, especially during tense moments. Ferdinand was not a man of action in the way Eckhart was, but just now he needed to move and at least pace a little bit while he explained himself.
It is an indisputable fact.
He began.
A fact that I have taken pains to hide from you. I may add, but that common girl from the city is responsible for bringing up Ehrenfest's ranking. Her influence helped raise Charlotte from commonplace Archduke candidate to one of the most admired individuals in the Royal Academy because of the trends Charlotte has passed off as her own. Now that our duchy's influence has risen, who do we have to thank for it? Whose inventions have enriched Ehrenfest's coffers? History has helped us forge strong ties to major duchies. Mines. Is that not enough to reason? Is that not enough reason to let the commoner have this?
Sylvester looked incredulous.
I refuse to believe we owe it all to Myne. I've known her for years, met her regularly, and yes, she is a gifted, though very outlandish individual. But you cannot make me believe that all of Ehrenfest's prosperity is not due in a large part to your own contribution. Ferdinand, you had a hand in it all, from raising Charlotte, Ehrenfest's rank, discovering the commoner girl, and all that. Are you saying that Myne's contributions are greater than your own?
The girl has more mana than you could imagine, Sylvester. In all of Ehrenfest, her mana alone is the only one I can sense.
Sylvester gasped. Ferdinand far surpassed Sylvester in mana capacity.
Are you serious?
Ferdinand nodded.
She is the reason why you continue to keep favorable relations with Frenveltag and Arnsbach, since we've been taking so many of their chalices every year. Who fills the bulk of them? Myne. Were it not for her, the temple would barely be able to sustain Ehrenfest on its own.
Sylvester was floored.
Why didn't you tell me this earlier? If she was truly behind the trends, and if she had such an overwhelming amount of mana, I would have had her be adopted by a noble immediately.
Ferdinand looked away. His brother's words confirmed what Ferdinand had thought would happen if he told Sylvester the full extent of her power. Sylvester would have charged in and decreed that she leave the lower city immediately so she could become a noble and be educated as one. There had come a point when Ferdinand had decided that he couldn't do that to Myne. The thought of breaking up her family was too much for Ferdinand to bear. The thought that she would cry and suffer from an early separation had filled his heart with pain. He had never in his life known the kind of warmth and love that he saw whenever Myne was with her family and loved ones, and he'd chosen to protect and prolong that time for her by purposely turning a blind eye to something so important for fear that he'd have to report this to Sylvester, as he was doing now. Still, why hadn't he told his own brother about Myne? It would have been beneficial for Ehrenfest and Myne, in the long run, to become educated as an adopted daughter of some noble. So why? Was it simply because he wanted to experience family, albeit vicariously, through Myne?
Because I loved her, even then. I wanted to keep her close as long as possible.
The realization came to him in a flash, and it left him breathless. He'd known for a very long time that she was special to him. What small bit of affection he was capable of feeling was all hers for the taking. But for years he'd only thought it was just him doting on her as a mentor would. But maybe even when she was a child he'd begun to... Had he loved Myne in that way since she'd been a child? The thought of embracing a young Myne while under the influence of Bookworm in the same way he'd done earlier was revolting to him. No, it wasn't the same. But he'd still felt the possessive need to keep her close by, and that did not sit well with him. It actually made him feel sick.
Ferdinand,
Sylvester said. Suddenly, his older brother was next to him, shaking his shoulders slightly with a look of concern.
what is the matter?
Ferdinand took a breath to steady himself.
Nothing's the matter. I'm fine.
But you don't look fine. Sit, will you? Here, have some visa. It's good stuff.
Ferdinand declined the drink, but let himself be led back to his seat.
To answer your question, I didn't tell you earlier because I did not know her exact main complexity.
He said, lying to his brother's face.
It was impossible to ascertain it until she began sensing mana, and by then it was the eve of her coming of age.
Sylvester sat in his chair and thought for a long moment.
So you're saying that crazy girl is threatening to go on a rampage and crush the world around her if I don't do as she says? Does she have a dying wish or something?
Not quite.
Ferdinand said, calming his brother down.
This incident has left her more dispirited than ever. Rather than wreaking havoc on the noble's quarter, she told me she intends to seek the greater heights before her time. She warned me that this winter we might experience a severe mana shortage.
Sylvester looked at him with shock.
Ferdinand, Why is she doing this? Is she absolutely insane?
Ferdinand shook his head slowly.
No, but I do believe she's tired and has reached her limit.
Sylvester raised an eyebrow as if asking.
Tired of what, exactly?
Ferdinand answered his unspoken question.
She's tired of being used.
Sylvester scoffed.
Do you hear yourself? Ferdinand, you're spouting nonsense. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you have feelings for this girl, and that is affecting your judgment. Fine. If you want to have it your way, then take her up as your secret concubine. Install her in your villa or something.
Ferdinand flinched.
I will not!
Sylvester grimaced at his own suggestion. An archduke candidate with a commoner was beyond outrageous after all.
You're right. That would be unprecedented and would upend the order of things.
He scratched his chin thoughtfully.
I'd also forgotten she's already your retainer's mistress, correct?
Sylvester sighed wearily.
I don't know. I'm tired of mulling over this. First it was Charlotte, then Florencia, now you. I can't say that I feel comfortable now, when even you are against my decision. I suppose I'll need more time to think things through. Tell Myne to come see me in 3 days' time. We're going to need to talk, and she must meet with Florencia and Charlotte, too.
Ferdinand let out a quiet breath of relief.
And you need to get back home.
Sylvester said, peeking at his face.
I hadn't noticed it earlier, but you're not looking well at all. Go, now. I myself am not... I'm not feeling too well. I think I'm going to bed now.
Ferdinand nodded and stood up, but he was arrested by a sudden cough from his brother. His eyes widened when he saw the blood that had splattered on the polished wooden surface of Sylvester's desk. Meanwhile, his older brother's face had gone deathly pale, and his dark green eyes were wide with shock. There was confusion and then horror as Sylvester realized what was going on. He coughed violently again.
Sylvester!
Ferdinand said, pulling out potions from his brother's belt. He howled at the guards and attendants standing outside to come in and help. Sylvester's servants poured in, and they all stared at horror at the terrible sight before them.
The vise!
Ferdinand said, pointing to the drink Sylvester had been enjoying earlier.
He's been poisoned. Call Florencia. Tell her the situation. She'll know what to bring and what to do.
Sir! The guard said, and moved to obey. There was no need to call the physician. They wouldn't get there in time. He would have to deal with this himself. Ferdinand looked down at his brother, whose head he held in his arms. Why? Why was it that for the second time that day it was up to Ferdinand to save someone he loved from climbing to the greater heights? He felt beyond frustrated at his luck in life.
Sylvester, stay with me,
he said in a commanding voice that still cracked with emotion.
You cannot let yourself be defeated. Fight it!
Sylvester nodded weakly, since his speech was now reduced to awful gurgling sounds and violent coughing. Ferdinand began administering the medicines as best as he could, hoping that Florencia would arrive with the necessary items. Florencia arrived quickly, face awash with tears, hair down and clad in a robe. She carried the case of potions reserved for such emergencies, potions much too valuable for anyone but a member of the archducal family to own. If those medicines couldn't save him, nothing would. Sylvester blinked up at her face. It seemed he wanted to say something, but he had to settle for reaching for her hand. He gripped his wife's hand as if it were his lifeline, gripped it as his breathing became shallower and shallower. Yet he seemed to calm down now that Florencia was there. There was something about the way the two held each other and wordlessly communicated that stole Ferdinand's breath away. It was an almost spiritual connection that was beyond his understanding, and which he deeply yearned to experience. He shook himself from his musings, however, and continued his ministrations, while Florencia tried to soothe Sylvester through her tears. While she did so, Sylvester's eyes stayed on her steadfastly, while he gripped her hand so hard that his knuckles went white. And he never let go, not even once, not even when his eyes rolled back in his head and he fell unconscious. End of chapter.
Will he survive?
Who
Tune in next
knows?
time.
You don't have to wait too long, maybe. I don't know. We're going to do another chapter. I do want to say, though, that I even shocked my proofreaders, my beta readers, when I pulled out that Sylvester has been poisoned.
Plot twist.
hmm?
Plot twist.
Yeah. And I don't know. It just came to me, you guys. I tell you, these people just do whatever they want, and I have no choice but to let them do the things. And I am the poor minion that has to write what they're
I don't
doing.
understand. Sylvester wanted to be
He
poisoned.
he needed to be poisoned. I don't know. Like, I was like, drama? Yes, drama. Let's poison somebody. What's a telenovela without some poisoning?
Wait, are you telling me that our chattering magpie wrote a telenovela?
Yes! This is Bookworm
Oh, God.
telenovela. Has it taken you 7 sessions or 9 sessions to figure it out?
No, I just like giving you a hard time.
It's
So,
fine.
by the way,
I'm proud of
Fergie,
it.
Fergie,
Yes, you're back!
how's your power?
You're muted.
So, Fergie on the chat.
Ah,
Yeah, there we go.
yeah, no,
Yay.
I don't know. It just flickered for a second, and then I was just like, panic.
Oh, yeah, I would have panicked too. If for some reason you guys don't hear me, it's probably going to be the same thing one day. But yeah, are you good? Are you good to read your
Yeah,
role?
no, it should be good. Yeah,
Awesome, awesome.
Hopefully.
All right.
In
So,
theory.
so we're going to read the second chapter now. Again, there's lots of questions whether Sylvester will survive it or not. Let me see something. I'm just trying to think how long it took for me to write the second chapter when I did that. So Drowning at the Sorrows, I wrote it on August 5, 2022. And I didn't answer any questions until August 29, almost a month later. So I let people just kind of stew on it for about a month. But you guys are lucky enough.
I'm kind of wondering if maybe it was Florencia.
No.
She seems plenty. She seems plenty disappointed in him.
Not to that extent. I don't know. Like Florencia, we can bash Florencia all we want about her being a bad mother too, but I don't think she was malicious like that. And if she is, then we're in a totally different kind of it's not even telenovela. It's like, well, maybe it might be telenovela content.
Murder mystery.
Yeah, murder mystery. Yeah.
It wasn't Florencia, it was her scholars because
Ooh.
Florencia's upset.
It was
It was
Lebrecht.
Yes.
Lebrecht's like, screw this. Let's just go out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah. Liebrecht is definitely a schemer like that.
Mm,
I keep forgetting that.
yeah.
He's
So-
Hartmut's father.
Oh yes, Hartmut father. We don't get any Hartmut yet, but we will eventually. But no. This is just. We'll talk. The next chapter covers a little bit more on what happened. Let me just pull it up. Again, we have reading these chapters. Justus is Yukihime, Coachman Patrick, Last from Butterfly, and Eckhart, JC Fergie. Okay, we are ready. Yes. Even if you're not, I don't care. We're ready here. Let's do it. Chapter 25. Meeting with Lord Ferdinand. A Eustace POV. The summary says, Eckhart and Eustace report to Ferdinand about the aftermath of the incidents involving Myne and Sylvester. 4 days later. By the time Eustace arrived at Lord Ferdinand's estate, it finally stopped raining and a pale sun began to peek out from behind the fast-moving clouds. As Eustace alighted from his carriage, the cold wind whipped his cape around him and took his breath away. But Eustace welcomed the bracing, if chilly, wind, if it meant that it was driving the rest of the rain clouds away. Things in Ehrenfest had seemed so grim for the past few days, and the continuous downpour had not made anyone else feel any better or hopeful. He hoped that with the sun's return, Lord Ferdinand and the few others who knew about what had happened to Lord Sylvester might take heart and feel a little less anxious.
We'd all feel a little less anxious if we knew exactly how much longer Lord Sylvester will have to remain in Jurev. So,
Figuring that he didn't have to worry about more rain for the rest of the morning, Eustace turned to his coachman and instructed him to return home with the carriage. He'd use his high beast for the rest of the day.
As you wish, my lord.
The man replied, and took his leave. Eustace climbed up the stairs to the front door, and it opened before he reached the top step. Lassafam, as always looking and acting as the consummate professional, despite his lowly lay noble status, greeted him with a polite smile. Eustace narrowed his eyes at his old friend, and when their eyes met, Lassafam faltered a little. Eustace saw traces of worry etched in the corners of his fellow co-workers' eyes.
It's just as I feared. Lord Ferdinand is not doing well. Is Eckhart already with him?
He hasn't arrived yet.
Lassafam answered.
I can't say I'm surprised. He hates the rain because he has to take carriages. I don't even think he owns one, does he?
He probably decided to wait until the rain He probably decided to wait out the rain until the last possible moment so he could take his high beast. He tires of
Price.
Tries to avoid bothering Lord Karsted or Elvira about borrowing carriages and such.
Except there is no effort too great or task too troublesome that he won't do for Lord Ferdinand.
Unless it's exploring the lower city.
Lassafam said with a small smile.
True.
Eustace chuckled. He opened his mouth to dwell on the fond memories of their expedition to the lower city when they carried out an investigation on Myne, back before she was a shrine maiden, a feat that had proven too strenuous for the son of the commander of the Knight's Order, and that had led to him being bedridden. But he sensed a familiar presence.
Well, what do you know? He's here now. We'd better go greet him.
Sorry I'm late.
Eckhart said upon alighting from his high beast. He ran up the steps 3 at a time and was with them in no time at all. He was a little wet from having ridden his high beast through rain clouds, yet somehow the oh-so-dependable Lassafam had a yellow, moisture-wicking cloth ready for him.
Thanks, Lassafam. It's comforting to know that someone like you is always on top of things, is with Lord Ferdinand in these difficult times.
Eckhart said as he patted his hair and clothes dry with the cloth. The yellow cloth began to change colors as it absorbed the moisture from Eckhart until it was saturated with water and was green in color.
I wish I could be more help.
Lassafam said with a wistful smile.
Would you care for another cloth?
Eckhart returned the magic tool, his hair looking more like its usual self.
No, thank you.
Good.
Eustace said.
Third bell is about to ring, and I believe we better get going and report to Lord Ferdinand.
Eustace turned to Lasfram.
Is there anything we need to know, Lasfam?
Lasfram opened his mouth, but he hesitated, then shook his head.
No, you see. You'll see for yourselves only before you go. Could you stay for a moment? I wish to speak of something else. Something unrelated to the matter of regarding Lord Sylvester.
Eustace nodded, though inwardly he was very puzzled.
What other thing other than the Ob's poisoning could be worrying Lasfam? That's what's been keeping us all busy this past few days.
Lasfram led them to Lord Ferdinand's study, which was a room just next to the now decimated bookroom. He rang the bell, and they waited for Lord Ferdinand to give them the order to enter. They waited for a few heartbeats, and Eustace sighed. Lord Ferdinand must be absorbed in his work, of course. He turned the doorknob and entered.
Please excuse me, my lord.
Eustace said, opening the door, but then his eyes widened at the sight that met them. The sun was pouring through the study's window, and the warm rays illuminated the rare sight of Lord Ferdinand asleep. He was surrounded by piles and piles of paperwork, but the fact remained that sometime in the middle of the night or early morning, their lord had been overcome by exhaustion, and he had rested his head in his arms and had ended up asleep. Lasfram muttered something under his breath and quickly stepped forward. He placed a hand on Lord Ferdinand's shoulder and woke him with a slight shake.
My lord, Eustace and Eckhart are here to see you.
Ferdinand's body stiffened and his eyes flew open immediately. He sat up and blinked around him at his 3 retainers, and the sun shining down on him, at the piles and piles of paperwork around him.
It's already third bell?
He asked. His voice sounded a little huskier than usual. However, he looked and sounded otherwise normal, as if he hadn't been asleep but rather been awake all the time, and he just put his head down to rest his eyes. Of course, he looked normal if one ignored the exhaustion in his eyes and the crease in his forehead that they all knew meant that Lord Ferdinand was having another one of those headaches he got whenever he was especially stressed. Eustace strode over to the window and pulled the curtains closed. It got significantly darker inside the room now, but that did not matter one bit. All that mattered was that the bright light did not grate on Lord Ferdinand's already strained nerves.
My lord, would you care for some refreshments?
Lasfram said, even though he already knew the answer.
No food for now, Lasfam. I will take some refreshment once I reach a proper stopping point.
At any other time, Lasfram would have nodded and gone away, but this time he persisted.
Perhaps some tea. You might take food. You needn't take food if you didn't wish it, but perhaps some
Leidenfegen.
Leidenfegen tea with
What?
Apple seed?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't even know how to say those words
Apple
either. Apple siege.
apple size.
Yeah, apple siege is like lemon and then Leidenfegen. I don't know. It's. I think it's. I found the tea that Ferdinand likes a lot. I think that's it. Anyway,
My line?
yes, go ahead.
Very well. I will take some tea.
Lord Ferdinand said with a sigh as he massaged his temple with his fingers.
But no food. I can't stomach it at the moment.
My lord.
Lastfram said as he withdrew.
Now,
Lord Ferdinand glanced at Eustace and Eckhart.
your reports?
Eckhart nodded once and began reporting on the state of the tea shop, the salon members and their fates, and Myne herself. As he reported, Lastfram returned with the tea cart and poured Lord Ferdinand his tea while he sipped slowly as he listened to Eckhart's report. Much as they had feared, the tea shop had seen a dramatic drop in sales, and their clientele had pretty much vanished. The first day had begun with very few visits and sales, which Myne and Frida had optimistically hoped was only because of the rainy weather. But after fourth bell, not a single customer crossed the tea shop's threshold, which was absolutely ridiculous because not even those that had ordered and paid for their usual lunch or tea sets had sent their servants to pick them up. Myne had sent out her own attendants to deliver the lunch and tea sets as a courtesy service, because what in the world was she supposed to do with 36 baskets of baked goods and lunches? But every single one of their customers had refused to even receive them, saying that they had never ordered them in the first place.
I'm sorry. What did she do with all that food?
Eustace asked, forgetting himself momentarily as he interrupted Eckhart's report.
Don't tell me it went to waste. Not the cheese and ham-filled pastries.
Eckhart smirked.
Those actually sound good.
Yeah, they
Of course not. Myne wanted to feed it to the orphans at the temple in the lower city's poor, but Frida stopped her from doing such an outrageous course of action and sent off the baskets to the lower city tea shops. Instead of selling the individual goods, the lower city's tea shops displayed the baskets at the windows as they were. And given that these products were meant and were packaged to suit such refined tastes of nobles, and that the items inside were treats that had never been sold before in the lower city, they sold out all of the 36 baskets within a bell.
That's actually brilliant.
Eustace murmured.
I forget that money is to Frida what books are for Lady Myne. What a wonderful partnership. Thought I do wish I'd known about this. Then I would have brought out all of their baskets.
I said as much to Myne. The mana required to keep the food in a time-stopping device would have truly been worth it.
Eckhart then smiled proudly.
But be that as it may, the fact that the noble clients refused to even acknowledge that they had placed orders with the tea shop meant that they also couldn't ask for a refund. So Myne and Frida profited twice as much from what could have been a great loss.
A small comfort.
Ferdinand sighed, putting down the empty teacup.
The fact still remains that the tea shop on this side of the city is as good as dead, since no noble will step foot in it.
Eckhart's previously pleased look turned dark.
Those that went in early in the first day were the few that did not hear what had happened in the night before with the salon. But by the afternoon, everyone in the lay nobles district, and even beyond, knew what had happened. As you say, my lord, the whole venture seems doomed. No one so much as visited the tea shop yesterday, and I just came from Myne's. She and Frida are at this very moment considering their next course of action.
Ferdinand nodded.
That will have to be determined later. Unfortunately. What about the people I asked you to look into?
Ah, yes. Every single one was out of the city for Lord Sylvester's decree, and all, save for 2 noblewomen, had some place to go. The two who had no family or friends to take care of them are now sheltered in the vacant villa you told me about. So the moment the edict is officially reversed, we'll be able to track down every single one of those women so that they can return to Ehrenfest.
Lord Ferdinand exhaled softly, and Eustace saw the slight easing of tension in his master's shoulders at the news. Apparently, on top of having to manage Ehrenfest in his brother's absence, and on top of having to worry over Lord Sylvester's health, he had also been worrying over the fate of those disgraced salon members, to the point that he'd assigned his own retainer to see that those that had nowhere to go were able to take shelter until they were able to return to Ehrenfest.
Why, though?
I'd wish she'd given me permission to tell Myne about the salon members, though.
Eckhart mused out loud.
She's very anxious about them. And Bernard, her scholar, even told me yesterday that she had contemplating taking matters into her own hands.
Lord Ferdinand, who after finishing his tea had been listening with closed eyes as he massaged his temples, had looked up with wide eyes.
What?
She approached Bernard and asked his help in sending out a bunch of ordinances to her salon friends to see if they were safe and if they needed some kind of support. It seems that she was planning to use her commoner connections and her own funds to house those and set up them in different cities.
Ferdinand's brow furrowed in a thunderous expression.
Mine!
Eckhart rushed to finish his part of the report to try to calm their master down.
Thankfully, Bernard is not easily swayed by her crazy ideas, and he talked her out of such rash course of actions. At least until we met yesterday, and then she then asked for my help to do what Bernard would not do.
You declined, of course.
Ferdinand said.
To do otherwise would have been the height of idiocy.
Yes, my lord, I agree.
Eckhart nodded. Eustace narrowed his eyes at his fellow co-worker. Based on Eckhart's stiff expression, Eustace could easily guess that Eckhart had found it hard to say no. Myne must now have quite a hold on Eckhart if she'd been able to sway him that much.
Interesting.
Lord Ferdinand sighed and leaned his head against the back of his chair, looking deep in thought. At last he nodded to himself.
Very well. You may tell her about the fact that they will be able to return. But make sure to tell her to keep quiet for now. Nothing can be settled until Sylvester wakes from his dream.
Yes, my lord,
Eckhart said with a nod and took a step back, indicating that he was done talking. However, it seemed that Lord Ferdinand wasn't done talking with him. Patrick.
Sorry. I'm sorry. And Myne.
my lord.
Eckhart asked, frowning in confusion. Lord Ferdinand exhaled in a manner that indicated extreme exhaustion.
Last time I saw her, she had collapsed after her mana raged out of control. I left her once I was assured she had awakened and there was no danger of relapse. How is her health and general state?
Eckhart thought for a moment.
It's hard to tell. We always eat dinner together now, but unless I ask her about her day, she doesn't really tell me about what is troubling her. On the whole, she seems to be back to normal, if a little more pale. I had to ask Fran about it, though, and it turns out that the day after she collapsed, she wouldn't leave her chamber, nor admit anyone in. Fran and Rosina had to beg her to open the door so they could at least bring her some food, at which point she let them in. Oh, that's right. Justice, Fran said that she needed more face stones. I was actually going to go purchase them from you after this.
Eustace's eyes widened in excitement.
She has more gold dust for me?
Eckhart nodded, but then frowned.
Yeah, though though it will only last. Yes, though it was only last week that I brought those face stones from you. You're not giving her lower quality face stones, are you?
Of course not.
Eustace exclaimed, feeling outraged at Eckhart's accusations.
The one I sold you last week was from a Regenvogel. A Regenvogel. It took me 2 weeks to trap one last summer, and now you tell me its face tone has been reduced to powder? Please advise her to empty the face stones rather than fill them beyond capacity?
I keep telling her, but for some reason, she just powders all of them instead, almost like she's incapable.
There are tools for that. Eustace sighed.
Well, ordinarily, I'd say what a waste, but Myne's gold powder is far more valuable than regular gold powder, so it is well worth it. Why, the fact that she is a devouring child means her mana.
Enough.
Lord Ferdinand cut in abruptly.
You can talk about all this later. Anything else, Eckhart?
Nothing else comes to mind.
Eckhart thought for a moment longer.
Ah, yes, now I remember. She had a bruise on her neck. She said she got up at night to fetch a book because she couldn't sleep, and she fell and hurt herself. So I took the liberty of casting I'm healing on her. Other than her fall and the bruising, her continuous dusting of face stones, all seems fine.
Eustace glanced at Lord Ferdinand and was puzzled at his reaction. Why was he cradling his head in his hands? Probably at the nature of Myne's accident. He too was amazed at the antics of that book-loving maniac. Of course she'd hurt herself in the pursuit of reading and books. Eustace felt sorry for Lord Ferdinand, who was forever burdened with having to care for such an abnormal girl, even if she was intriguing.
Very well.
Lord Ferdinand said after a time.
Your report is very enlightening. It seems Myne is still unpredictable and rather volatile.
Element.
Sorry, it just didn't make sense. I guess I read it wrong. I'll start that sentence from the top. It seems Myne is still an unpredictable and rather volatile element in our midst. So I am relieved to know she is surrounded by people who can keep her in check. Anyway, please report to me anything else, particularly if you see any changes in her health.
Yes, my lord.
Lord Ferdinand turned toward him next.
Eustace, anything about the visa?
Eustace had been observing his master throughout the exchange, and he knew Lord Ferdinand was feeling very ill indeed, so he kept his report as short and succinct as possible.
Yes, my lord. Thanks to Lord Karsted's cooperation, we were able to ascertain the identity of the noble who gifted Lord Sylvester with the poison bees. Lord Karsted has placed surveillance around Lord Varawell in hopes of learning more about the man's closest associates and accomplices by watching his moves. Viscount Varawell has not been apprehended, nor has any other action against him been taken yet.
And the poison.
Vitvetran nectar, as you suspected.
Any rumors in the city? And if there are any, have you identified potential leaks?
There are no rumors about our orb. The lower city is chiefly concerned with the damage caused by the recent rains, while the nobles are mostly gossiping about Lady Brunhilde's broken engagement and the incident at Myne's tea shop. Nothing regarding Lord Sylvester or Lady Charlotte.
Lord Ferdinand nodded, relief plainly written across his face.
That is very good to hear. Good job, both of you. You've done more than I could have ever accomplished on my own. You may go now.
Sir,
Eckhart exclaimed.
may we be of help? Surely we can assist you in some of the paperwork.
Lord Ferdinand shook his head.
Today is my last day sorting out these files on my own. I'm going to the castle after fourth bell, ostensibly to meet and tutor Charlotte. But I'll have her scholars, and Sylvester's scholars work on the rest of this. I feel like it's I feel like it is finally a manageable state for them to tackle now.
Now that you did the bulk of the work,
Eustace exclaimed inside, feeling frustrated that Lord Ferdinand had pushed himself to do the work that should have gone to Sylvester's scholars.
my lord,
Eustace began.
when might we expect Lord Sylvester to awaken?
Lord Ferdinand lowered his eyes, and in a rare show of vulnerability shook his head helplessly.
I don't know,
He said quietly.
I thought I got him in time, but he should have awakened yesterday. However, if he doesn't wake by the end of the week, then we'll have to execute our other plan and set up Charlotte as temporary aunt. If that is the case, then you'll both need to be prepared for a trip to the sovereignty, since we need to apply to the Zent for special permission first.
The sovereignty?
Eustace asked.
We've always avoided going back there at any cost, and you have always been hesitant to meet with the royals.
Lord Ferdinand gave a short, mirthless laugh.
Huh. Well, I guess we'll have to. I guess then we better hope for Sylvester to wake soon, right?
He sighed and waved his hand.
You may go now.
Yes,
Yes,
my
my
lord.
lord.
They both said and turned to leave. However, before the door closed behind them, Lord Ferdinand called out to Eckhart.
I almost forgot. I need to talk with Myne. Have her come meet me here tomorrow at third bell.
Yes, Lord Ferdinand.
Eckhart said. He shut the door of the study and walked back downstairs with Eustace, leaving behind Lord Eckhart in his darkened study, alone once more. End of chapter.
Did you say Lord Eckhart?
Did I? Well, Eckhart
Yes.
said, yes, Lord Wait, who read it?
You
Leaving Lord Ferdinand, sorry. Oops. All right.
I mean, I can't
Leaving-
I can't really.
Leaving
I can't
Lord
really criticize you
Ferdinand
that
in
much.
his darkened study, alone once more. There, I did it. I fixed it. Ah!
I mean, there have been plenty of times when reading that I kind of ad lib some lines.
Yeah, I noticed you guys did that a little bit here. That's okay. Well, as long as it's still within the thing. Okay, so we got Sylvester isn't dead yet, or he's not dead. Yay! He is still on the Jareve. Hopefully he should wake within the next couple of days. Otherwise, well, they're gonna have to come up with another solution for leading the duchy. So what are your reactions to what happened to Myne's tea shop and the women from the tea shop?
I mean, in the world of politics, it makes perfect sense that everybody left and won't come back.
Bunch of rude snobs.
Right? Not the meat and ham-filled pastries. Ah! So
I hope I gave the comedy to Justus.
thank you. Yes, that was a very crucial line. Honestly, you guys, I decided during this whole fanfic that he would have a thing for the pastry, so it'll pop up again. He likes the pastries.
I hope to read him again.
Yeah, you should. Let me see. Is there another Eustace POV? Oh, chapter 27. So next chapter is gonna be After the Storm. It's a Myne POV. Then 27 is a difficult choice. It's another Eustace POV. Ooh, and so 3 more chapters, and then it'll be the end of part 3. So part 3, really short part. basically dealing with cleaning up after the aftermath of the salon, dealing with Sylvester's poisoning, and then we'll get to part 4 when, yeah. For those of you who have read part 4, it's that part. Yeah. So
Brunhilde's engagement has fallen off, has broken.
Oh yeah, I just figured like I wanted to like name drop people that we know, and I figured here's some Brunhild. So Brunhild, I think in this weeb, it's the same stuff that happened. Her father had a male son. Yeah. Brunhild was going to be the Gib, but because her father finally and officially appointed her little brother as his heir, her engagement broke. So that's basically why people are gossiping about her now. So right now Brunhild is not in a good place, unfortunately. Yeah. Like, if it had not been for Myne, or for Rosamine, her applying for second wife position would have been, I think, a little bit more difficult to come by. Or maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. We can see it. Yep.
It's definitely a shame that Brunhild won't be able to save her standing by getting engaged to Sylvester this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sylvester has his own issues at home. There's the fact that Charlotte, she ran off to the lower nobles district. She went off gallivanting. Florencia's like, that's on you for not being a proper father. So
I literally gasped. Oh my god! Like, it was like a slap from Florencia, that line.
Yeah. I tried to make that marital fight sound as realistic as possible, but there wasn't enough interruptions going on. The paragraphs were too long, but I was like, I don't care, I need to fit in as much exposition as possible here. So usually though, people are not, at least not in any couples quarrels, they haven't been as fluid or as I don't know, people are speaking in paragraphs. I don't know. But we did need to figure out what was going on in Sylvester's family, and I didn't want to do like narration, like, yeah, and his family, and this is what happened. No, I'd rather just do exposition through the dialogue, though.
It's a great scene.
Yeah, I I thought that the worst way to get to Sylvester wasn't just the fight, because I think he's the kind that cools off after a fight fairly quick. That's kind of like how I am. I usually rather just get through it, clear the air, and then okay, we're fine, we're cool, let's just continue on. But then he's like, reality check, you don't get to sleep here. Go to your office and sleep over there. So I think that's what hurt him the most, the poor dear. Our beloved himbo. Yeah. So we got
sleeping on the couch.
Mm-hmm. So we got some comments. Hi Remy is saying, is Eustace gonna play Cupid? Ooh, I wonder if he is, and for whom. Also, Teal points out, yep, Myne fell. Silly, clumsy Myne. Do you guys think that she really did fall? And that's how she got bruising on her neck?
No, it's from Ferdinand, no?
Yes. Yes.
I wonder what those bruises could be from. Could it be a bee?
Mm-hmm.
A mosquito.
A big mosquito. So Eckhart, of course, he totally believed in the fact that
a Ferdinand-sized mosquito, maybe.
Oh no.
Well, he has been a pest on occasion.
He has been. So Fergie asks, no one here knows what a hickey is, I guess. So he only saw the one bruise. Like, So he just did the healing in general, like healing for Myne, and that's it. He didn't even think about it much. Because Eckhart is Eckhart, he's our beloved murder doggo. He channels. He doesn't channel, like a deep thinker. He's just like, cool. If that's what you tell me, I'll believe you. Let me just heal you. So,
That's
my personal
trust
headcanon. Or no, you go first.
Yukihime and then Fergie.
I forgot. Sorry. Leave me.
Fergie?
Okay, what I was going to say is my personal headcanon regarding all this, and without getting too lewd, but it's just like the fact that like a hickey, I think that would be too much of a statement to make in very conservative Jürgenschmidt. Like the fact like that Ferdinand did that almost leads more into like the Eblblieb behavior, or the god of winter. I am bad at these pronunciations, but just like to have that kind of association, be like, yeah, no normal noble would do that, especially to someone that's not theirs. So it's like Ferdinand is just like, you need to bonk. Just no.
Yeah, and you should know because he also did help in the proofreading on some of these. So, I remember a lot of people were asking about the Ferdinand in this alternate weeb, especially regarding his talk with Sylvester and how he decided to not tell Sylvester about Myne, which is so not what would have happened in canon. So if you're thinking that, fair, okay, I absolutely understand it, but there's plot reasons for it, okay? Just hang tight, okay? There's plot reasons. But mostly, though, it is true that he did want to just protect Myne's time with her family. I based it off also on the fact that in canon, one of his biggest regrets in his life was the fact that he had been unable to grant her time with her family until she was 10 years old, due to the fact that the attack on the temple, because of that, he wasn't around. Arno was a little snake.
I was gonna say this time Arno didn't prevent him from finding out.
That's true. So yeah, because of that, what did I write Arno in this one? Now that I think about it, anyway, I have to go back and do a mass search through the whole fanfic for the mention of Arno. But yeah, since that didn't happen, it still remains the fact still remains though that Ferdinand is, he's always been kind of obsessed about family, whether in canon or not. So he's just trying to protect that for Myne. All right, so I think those are all the questions that I think. Oh, Hi Remy does ask, wait, is Ferdinand working alone? What about Bonifatius? So Bonifatius and Karstedt were working on the same stuff, investigation and investigation and protection of the Archducal family. So he's doing stuff at the moment. All right, so yeah, I think that's it. So, okay, so Fergie already did the search for Arno, so no results. Let's rectify that situation and have him die a violent death even in this weeb. Any thoughts? Any ideas? Put them in the comments.
That seems a little forced. You're gonna have to give a reason for it.
Well, just because he didn't mess up today doesn't mean he's not gonna mess up tomorrow or the next day. Or maybe Ferdinand saw that earlier and was just like, "Huh, I should nip that in the bud."
I'm just trying to spill some blood here, and I want to justify an Arno execution scene somewhere in here. I don't know, you guys. Because if Kazuki-sensei did not want to write it, that doesn't mean nobody wants to write it, because I want to write it.
You heard it here, folks. Her hatred of Arno is so strong that she must eliminate him.
That's right. That's right. It is strong. He hurt my baby Ferdy. And of course, he wanted to
What?
hurt.
He hurt Ferdy?
Yes.
No, he hurt mine.
He hurt
He
Fran.
hurt mine.
I
That-
know.
that-
Fran.
I know. And Fran.
Hurt people.
That bastard deserved everything that he got.
I think you should write it then. I think you have more reasons to kill him off than I do.
you already voluntold me for this Georgine story, and I've got my hands full with that.
Okay. All right. So I'll put it on my to be written TBR TBW.
Right.
Yeah, TBW. Or if anybody else listening here wants to write a murder scene with Arno, where Arno goes up the towering staircase. I'm just saying, you guys.
Good night, Time Lord Boy.
All right, Time Lord Boy, good night. Thank you for joining. We'll see you then on the next read along. I think we should also say goodnight to everybody else who's here. Those were really fun chapters. It was a little bit of the first one was basically Sylvester died. The second was just catching things up. I didn't want to drag the story
What?
with 3
Spoilers.
chapters.
Sylvester died.
Metaphorically.
Sylvester was poisoned. And the second one, it was just trying to move the story along as quickly as possible. So I just had these people give their reports. The next one, though, it is the very much dreaded and anticipated Myne Ferdinand reunion. They haven't talked to each other. They haven't seen each other since that disastrous night. So how are they going to talk? We'll see. So we do get an update on that. So do join us. It'll be on Monday. Not sure about the time yet. Probably noon. I'm pretty sure it'll be noon. Yeah, Monday noon. So I will see you then, you guys. Thank you again to those that read. It was Ferdinand was read by Patrick. Sylvester was read by Teal. Florencia was read by Little Purple Butterfly. Eustace was read by Yukihime. Coachman by Patrick / Pee Wee Herman. Last Fam was read by Butterfly. And Eckhart was read by JC Fergie. You guys did awesome! Oh my gosh, it's so much more fun to read with voices. You guys are amazing. All right, everybody.
I'm looking forward to seeing everybody later.
Okay, me too. Take care, everybody. Until Monday.
Bye, chat.
Sayonara.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we are done, you guys.